Hi, welcome to another episode of African Biographics. In today's episode, we cover Cecil John Rhodes, a figure whose legacy divides public opinion. His admirers consider him as a doyen of business whose acumen allowed him to build an empire of unparalleled magnitude. Yet he was an imperialist personified and someone who clearly benefited from the exploitation of the continent's resources and its people. Rhodes' detractors see him as a racist and one of the people who helped prepare the way for apartheid by working to alter the laws on voting and land ownership. It's worth to have a look at his life, as his story is a significant chapter in the rich history of Africa, particularly Southern Africa. In this video, we take a look at the life and legacy of Cecil John Rhodes. Cecil John Rhodes was born on 5 July 1853 in the small hamlet of Bishop's Stortford, England. His father was prosperous enough to send one son to the prestigious Eton College, another to Winchester College, and 3 into the army. Cecil, however, was kept at home because of a weakness of the lungs and was educated at the local grammar school. Poor health also deterred him from the professional career he planned. Because of his poor health, it was decided that he visit his brother, Herbert, who had recently immigrated to Natal in South Africa. It was also believed by both Rhodes and his father that the business opportunities offered in South Africa would be able to provide Rhodes with a more promising future than staying in England. At the age of 18 in October 1871, Rhodes left the Natal colony to follow his brother to the diamond fields of Kimberley in South Africa. These fields, which were worked by numerous small claim holders, formed the center of the Cape Diamond mining. In Kimberley, he supervised the working of his brother's claim and speculated on his behalf. To forge profitable enterprises, Rhodes and other entrepreneurs began to buy out the smallholders. Among his associates in the early days were John Merriman and Charles Rudd of the infamous Rudd Concession, who later became his partner in the De Beers Mining Company and the British South Africa Company. In 1872, the two brought an ice-making machine from England and sold ice to diggers working under the hot Kimberley sun. With the profits, they bought more claims. By 1873, Rhodes had assets worth £10,000, enabling him to leave to study in Oxford. He entrusted these claims to Rudd and sailed to England. The first phase of his Oxford career was short and incomplete, and it would take until 1881 and several more short periods of study before Rhodes acquired a degree. One of Rhodes' guiding principles throughout his life that underpinned almost all of his action was his firm belief that the Englishman was the greatest human specimen in the world and that his rule would benefit to all. Rhodes was the ultimate imperialist, and he believed, above all else, in the glory of the British Empire and superiority of the Englishman and British rule, and saw it as his God-given task to expand the empire, not only for the good of that empire, but, as he believed, for the good of all the people under the rule of the empire. In one of his confessions from 1877, he is quoted saying, "I contend that we are the first race in the world, and that the more of the world we inhabit, the better it is for the human race." Just fancy those parts that are at present inhabited by the most despicable specimen of human being. What an alteration there would be in them if they were brought under Anglo-Saxon influence. If there be a God, I think what he would like me to do is to paint as much of the map of Africa British red as possible. Rhodes was both ruthless and incredibly successful in his pursuit of this scheme of a great British Empire. One of Rhodes' greatest dreams was a ribbon of red demarcating British territory which would cross the whole of Africa from South Africa to Egypt. Before his departure for Oxford, Rhodes had realized that the changing laws in the Kimberley area would force the small men out of the diamond fields and only leave larger companies able to operate in the mines. In light of this, he sought to consolidate a number of mines with his partner, Charles Rudd. Rhodes had decided to move away from the new Rush Kimberley mine fields that were higher in the ground and thus more accessible, back to the lower yielding Old Rush area. Here in the Old Rush area, Rhodes and Rudd bought the costly claim of what was known as the Old De Beers farm, which owed its name to Johannes Nicholas De Beer and his brother Diedrich De Beer. It was this farm that would lend its name to Rhodes and Rudd's ever-growing diamond company. Rhodes, Rudd and 4 others created the De Beers Mining Company Limited from their 90 claims in these mines. With the initial capital of £200,000, they plotted to expand the business and amalgamate all 622 registered claims. Once small claim holders had been bought out by larger mining companies, those who continued to work for them were forced to accept what are now recognized as exploitative forms of employment. In order to keep the price of diamonds high, the supply needed to be limited, and Rhodes believed that this was only attainable through full control over all the mines in Kimberley. Rhodes' main competitor in gaining full control over the diamond industry was Barney Barnato, owner of the Kimberley Central Diamond Mining Company, the largest company in Kimberley. In 1888, Rhodes and Barney Barnato began to fight for control in earnest, with Barnato still in the stronger position. Rhodes then entered the struggle with his advisor, Alfred Beit, a German Jew who knew the diamond industry inside out. Alfred Beit cancelled Rhodes as he maneuvered to take over Kimberley Central. Rhodes eventually gained a majority share in Barnato's company in March of 1888 by purchasing 3/5 of Kimberley Central stock and spending over £5 million. Barnato agreed to give up control of Kimberley Central in exchange for becoming a life governor of the new company, along with Rhodes, Beit and Philipson Stowe. And so was born the De Beers Consolidated Mine Limited with Rhodes as its first chairman. By 1888, Rhodes had achieved his goal of amalgamating and dominating all of South African diamond mining and 90% of world production.
Could 2 months' salary last forever? A diamond is forever. De Beers.
It was De Beers that pioneered the construction of closed compounds, where migrant laborers were racially segregated and locked in for the duration of their contracts. In 1881, Rhodes entered Cape politics as an MP, and in May of 1890, he was elected the Prime Minister of the Cape Colony. His government introduced a system of dues, raised the property franchise to £75 and made it a requirement for farmers to be able to read and write English. By raising the property qualification for voters and introducing a literacy test, this excluded most Africans from the franchise. He introduced the Glen Grey Act of 1894 to push Africans from their lands and make way for industrial development, and introduced a tax on the landless as a stimulus to encourage wage labor. These critics point to his time as Prime Minister of the Cape Colony, when his government effectively restricted the rights of black Africans by raising the financial qualifications for voting. All of this was a precursor of what became apartheid. In 1895, the reform movement led by mine owners in the Transvaal Republic and secretly supported by Rhodes plotted to overthrow the Transvaal government of Paul Kruger. Rhodes wanted a united South Africa and a Cape to Cairo railway running through the British territory all the way. But Paul Kruger wanted the Transvaal to remain Afrikaner. On 29 December 1895, a raiding party of 600 armed men led by Dr. Leander Starr Jameson crossed the border from Bechuanaland. This plot by Rhodes and Leander Starr Jameson failed because the Boers had received warning of the attack and Jameson was forced to surrender on 2 January 1896. Cecil John Rhodes acknowledged his complicity in the famous Jameson raid, culminating in his resignation as Prime Minister on 6 January 1896. Paul Kruger and the Boers felt their way of life was threatened by the British and war broke out in 1898. This war was known as the Anglo-Boer War. After 1886, when gold was first prospected on the Witwatersrand, the northward expansion of British colonial control increased its pace. Rhodes was interested in gold, but decided to go for the exploration of this mineral north of the Limpopo River in the Ndebele Kingdom, bypassing the Boer-controlled South African Republic, the Transvaal, and at the same time leading the British effort in the scramble for this part of Africa, now contested by Britain, Germany, Portugal and Belgium. So in 1889, the British government under Lord Salisbury awarded Rhodes a charter for a British South Africa Company, BCAC, to expand British interests into South Central Africa. Within a couple of years, the BCAC not only annexed most of the territory now known as Zimbabwe, formerly Southern Rhodesia, but the company also incorporated what are now Zambia, formerly Northern Rhodesia, and Malawi by way of treaties with local leaders. Northern and Southern Rhodesia were named after Rhodes himself. Underlying the BCAC's actions was a promise to populate the areas brought under its control with settlers, which would allow for the necessary capitalist development to the interior at minimum cost. But in effect, they hoodwinked the local kings with these treaties. For example, the king of the Ndebeles, King Lobengula, the son of the great king Mzilikazi. In the last 4 years of his life, Rhodes stayed in England for a considerable time. It also took time to fight legal battles against accusations made over his role in the Jameson raid. After the Anglo-Boer War that broke out, Rhodes rushed to Kimberley to organize the defense of the town. However, his health was worsened by the siege, and after traveling to Europe, he returned to the Cape in February of 1902. He died on 26 March 1902 at Muizenberg in the Cape Colony, now Cape Town. Rhodes was buried at the Matopos Hills in Rhodesia, now present-day Zimbabwe. When he died, he left £6 million, which is approximately $960 million as of 2015, most of which went to Oxford University to establish the Rhodes Scholarship to provide places at Oxford for students from the United States, the British colonies, and Germany. But as I said in the beginning of the video, the life story and legacy of Cecil John Rhodes divides public opinion. His supporters saw him as having brought political and physical infrastructure to South Africa, but his critics point to his time as Prime Minister of the Cape Colony from 1890 to 1896 as a precursor to what became apartheid. This would explain the Rhodes Must Fall movement that started a few years ago in South Africa. Let me know in the comment section below what your opinion on the legacy of Cecil John Rhodes is. For the next few weeks, we'll be doing a series of videos on civil wars that have shaped the geopolitics of the continent of Africa. We will look at the Sudan civil wars that gave birth to South Sudan, Nigeria civil war, also known as the Biafra war, the Ethiopia-Eritrea border war, and finally the Mozambican civil war. It's going to be a good one. If you're new here and are interested in similar content, don't be shy to subscribe and to click the notifications bell so that you don't miss out on any new uploads. Thank you all for watching. This has been Tatenda for African Biographics. Until next time, cheers. Have a good one.